All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome back to True Crime Loser. I hope you're doing well. So, folks, today we're going to talk about the testimony of Nancy Brophy. 2 months ago, Nancy got up on the stand during her murder trial. She was up there for 9 hours, and she took an absolute beating, and it was a satisfying beating because Nancy Brophy is a cocky, manipulative, violent, backstabbing, delusionally confident woman who always is positive that she's one step ahead of everybody else, that she's too smart, that she's too clever, that any situation that she needs to manipulate in her favor, all she's got to do is turn on the Southern charm. Why, Stephen? All she's got to do is turn on the Southern chatter, and before she knows it, everything is going her way. The same delusional confidence that led her to think, yeah, I'm a good writer and the stories I come up with are good and interesting, is the same delusional confidence that led her to think, yeah, I can kill my great husband Dan for a retirement plan and surely I can get away with it and outsmart everybody, including the law enforcement, is the same delusional confidence that led her to think, yeah, I can get up on the stand and spar with the attorney and I'll outsmart him and I'll always have the right answer and I'll turn on the Southern chatter. And Nancy Brophy gets taken to school. And all of a sudden she's realizing 8 hours in, the Southern chatter isn't working. My big rehearsed lines aren't really hitting. And all of a sudden she's wide-eyed and it is not going well. And here's one of my, we're going to start at the beginning, but here's one of the moments where the lawyer just outthinks her and beats her. So Nancy Brophy happened to buy a ghost gun, even though she's not smart enough to put it together and she's not capable enough of using it safely. Nancy Brophy, her story is, I thought I would write a book about a character that has a ghost gun, so I needed to buy one. So even though her books don't make any money and her and her husband were up to their eyeballs in debt and their house payments were very soon to be default, Nancy Brophy thought, I'm going to buy a $500 ghost gun. And so she buys the ghost gun, and then she buys the real gun, thinking, we'll talk about that, but thinking that she could swap the slides out and fake everybody out with the murder weapon. The slides don't fit, so then she has to buy the slide and barrel. But for the part I'm talking about, the lawyer, up until she's up on the stand, she has minimized her interaction with these guns that she's bought. She's saying, yeah, I bought the gun kit for the story that I'm writing. It was for research. It was for writing. But I didn't get around to writing the story, so I barely even looked at the thing, and I put it under the bed, and I covered it with a sheet. I got it out of there. And then as far as the real gun goes, we got it home. I didn't like it. We put it away. We barely ever thought about it again. So that's how she had been talking to the cops up until, the whole investigation, the whole thing. We hated it. I didn't write the story. I just put it away. I didn't do anything with it. But all of a sudden she's up on the stand and they're asking her, did you take the slide off of the real gun that you bought? And she goes, yeah. And he goes, so you did take the slide off? And she's going, yeah, I didn't think that was a secret. And she's looking at her lawyer. The whole time she's looking at her lawyer, getting like little signals and stuff. I would have objected that. Just like, Your Honor, what are they doing? But the whole time she's looking at her lawyer. So the lawyer wants Nancy to admit that she took the slide and barrel from the ghost gun that apparently was just for research, that she barely even looked at. She got it to write the book. She pictures it as a toy. He wants her, which she never has admitted it, he wants her to admit that she's at least tried to put the slide and barrel on the ghost gun kit on the real gun kit. And the fact that it didn't fit, you got to think, is why she bought another slide and barrel off eBay. Oh, crap, that didn't work. I got to buy another one. That's going to look a little suspicious. So the lawyer, like I said, up until this point, she said, no, I barely even touched the gun, let alone taken parts off, or I know how to do it. But all of a sudden, she's going, yeah, I took the slide and barrel off the real gun, the one that we bought at the gun show. Sure, of course, we were messing with it. So the lawyer wants her to admit that she attempted to put the slide and barrel from the ghost gun on the real gun. And if he were to just ask her, Nancy, did you ever try to put the slide and barrel on the ghost gun on the real gun? The lawyer's smart enough to know that he would get an answer like this. No, of course not. The gun kit was for writing. It was for the story that I was writing. It was a toy. I had never, there were two separate, she says, there's two separate cubicles in my mind. The gun from the gun show was for protection. We got it home. We didn't know how we felt about it. We put it away. I was still kind of curious, so I got it back out. Ooh. But then we put it back away, and I never put the two together, and she would have gone on and on and on. And so the lawyer is smart enough to know, okay, that's a perfect type of question where we can go into the Nancy dimension, and she can bring it, woo, Southern chatter. And so the lawyer, smart enough to know that she'll just lie that one into oblivion, takes a different strategy. He plays into the fact that she thinks she's so clever and that she wants to outsmart everyone and have the big line that takes down the attorney where she looks smart. And so he plays into that. And so he takes the gun, the real gun that she bought at a gun show, and the slide and barrel from the gun kit, and they're not identical. The slide and barrel from the gun kit is shorter, but he goes up there and almost plays dumb like an idiot, and he's showing it to her, and he goes, "Do these look identical to you?" And Nancy's going, "No, the one is a lot shorter." And he kind of refuses to concede. He'll just do a different angle, like, "All right, well, let me show you this angle. Do these look identical to you?" And Nancy's going, "No, if someone were to say, circle the 5 things that aren't identical, you would circle the part where it's too short. It's they're not identical." And the lawyer's just bearing down, trying to act like an idiot, like, "All right, well, maybe if I show you this angle." And finally, that spark in Nancy where she just wants to be the smartest one in the room and take him down, it's too much for her, and she switches her posture to like, "All right, I'm about to take you down." And she goes, "I would ask you this, as you're demonstrating this, does it fit on the other gun? No. Does that make it not identical? Yes." And then the lawyer snaps out of his idiot character and goes, "So you did try it. So you do know it doesn't fit," and just walks back to the table. And she's sitting there going, I knew it didn't fit because I have a book about Glocks," and she's looking at her lawyer, and I mean, she got beat. You got mentally beat on that one, Nancy. What happened to the too clever for anybody? What happened, Nancy? And so to see the cocky look wiped off Nancy's face, I live for those moments, whether it's up on the stand, in a courtroom, or in a sporting event, whatever it is, that moment where the cocky, delusional confidence gets wiped off a person's face, that's what I'm living for, and that's what we get in this one. But let's go all the way back to the beginning. The first 6 hours of the testimony is direct examination. So it's her lawyer lobbing her softball questions. They're trying to establish that overall, they're trying to establish that Nancy loves Dan. Just, "I love Dan. We were a team." And they want, it's a strategy for how long they had her up there for direct. 6 hours. You could have done the whole thing in 3. They did the cross in 3. But the more time she's up there, being her charismatic self, laughing, cackling, you would have thought her and her lawyer were 2 older ladies out to lunch, catching up. The laughing just gets bizarre as it goes. Nancy thinks, if I just laugh and cackle really loud and crazy, maybe they'll think I'm nice. And the things that make Nancy look really bad in this case are she owns 2 of the exact same gun as the murder weapon, and also an extra slide and barrel, which is missing. Not good. There's also footage of Nancy driving around, which she had lied about. "I was in bed writing my next great Navy SEAL novel. I was deciding, should the Navy SEAL have a shirt or not? Gonna go with no." She was like, "I was writing," and then all of a sudden the footage came out where she's driving around at the exact spot in the exact moment. So again, doesn't look good. You have to address that as far as in the direct examination. And then the third thing that looks really bad is you can paint a pretty realistic picture of that Nancy did this as a retirement plan, a financial motive, a retirement plan. This was what she chose. And then in order to make it look like realistic that she bought the ghost gun kit and that she bought the extra slide and barrel and all this stuff, you have to make her stupid writing career seem legitimate. Because if she's not a legitimate writer, buying these gun kits and the extra slide and barrel is totally absurd. You're in credit card debt up to your eyeballs. The house payments are late. The money is stressed. You barely work. You sit in bed all day writing the nonsense foolishness novels no one's going to read. And then on top of that, you're spending thousands of dollars on research objects for the books. It's a stretch, but those are the four things that her lawyer, they gotta metal them up, they gotta water them down, they gotta make it sound normal. So what they do is they start with the life insurance. Nancy sold life insurance for a while, so they had all sorts of plans on everyone. So as a way to try to make it look not so suspicious that Nancy killed Dan to get the north of $2 million life insurance policy, they really just muddy the waters. They get into all the policies, and their way to show, look, this makes sense. Of course she didn't do it, was saying that it looks like Nancy planned Dan's death for a year, almost a year. And so her lawyer's going, so for that policy against Dan, you don't get the money on that one unless he lives until he's 79, right? And Nancy's going, yes, exactly, yes. And so the lawyer's going, so you are paying hundreds of dollars a month, pretty much betting that Dan is alive. And Nancy's going, yes, exactly. And then it's almost like, see, I told you. She was betting hundreds of dollars a month thinking he'd be alive. And it's like, well, it'd be easy to go, all right, well, I got to chip in a couple hundred a month, but then after I pull the whole thing off, I get north of $2 million. So the big point they were hoping for, I don't know if it hit. Okay. The second one, you got to explain the money problems. They made it there was a pretty clear picture that they had devastating money issues. It was pretty much all Nancy's fault. She sat in bed and wrote the foolish shirtless Navy SEAL novels all day. Didn't help Dan at all. They needed to sell the house. A big part of selling the house is they had a massive project to clean out the backyard. And the more of this trial and testimony that I watch, I think a big motivation for her to murder Dan was just to get help cleaning the house and selling the house and cleaning out that backyard. That it was pretty much a construction project. Because all of a sudden, Dan's gone, and everyone goes, oh my God, you're a sad widow. Let us come over. Let us help you pack. People that own tractors and heavy equipment came over and did the whole backyard for her. So Dan was fighting her on it. I don't want to get rid of the backyard. I love this house. Can we figure it out? I love my garden. I don't want to rip out my whole garden. And all of a sudden, Dan is gone, and she's the sad widow, and people are coming over, and people are saying, let me take care of this huge project for you so you can go on to sell the house. And so out of all of the things that she looks bad about, muddying up and making it confusing about the money issues is probably the easiest thing, because all she has to do is say, well, it was bad, but we had a plan and we were working on it, and Dan's side gig was taking care of the credit card debt, and we were getting the house ready to sell, and then we're going to have equity in that. And it's easy once Dan's gone, because Dan's not there to be like, that's not true. I was saying I don't want to. She was saying this, and we weren't getting caught up. But you letting Nancy go on and ramble about, it was about ready to be over, and the sun was starting to shine, and we were going to sell the house, and we were going to downsize, and without knowing the true conversations they had as a couple and where they truly were, it's impossible to know. So at this point, Nancy is having the time of her life up on the stand. She's never been more notorious. She's never been more paid attention to. They're talking about her writing as if it's real. I mean, can you imagine? Speaking of delusional confidence, that she made her think she's a writer. I left this story out of the last video. She contacted a bookstore and said, "Hi, I'm Nancy Brophy, the shirtless Navy SEAL author. How you doing? I'd like to do a book signing at your bookstore, have my fans come, say a few words, and then I'll sign my books. The Right Kind, Wrong Never Felt So Right series, The Wrong Hero, The Wrong Husband, The Wrong Cop, the whole thing." So the bookstore was like, "Yeah, all right, cool." And so she gets there, she sets up. You got to think there's a table with all of her books set up. Wrong Never Felt So Right. Maybe some folding chairs for all the fans to sit in. I'm sure that the staff from the bookstore was rushing around trying to get everything ready. Maybe Dan made hors d'oeuvres. Everything's set up, and nobody came. Not one shirtless Navy SEAL book was signed for a fan that day. And so, I mean, if that's not delusional, you're publishing your books on Amazon, no one's buying them, no one's reading them, no one's telling you they're good. Why would you think, you know what? The fans need a book signing. That's the problem. The fans, they need a signing. I'm gonna book one. So she's having a ball up there. During direct examination, she's laughing. She's cooking it up with the lawyer. If she does something that the judge says, "Hey, don't do that," she goes, "Sorry. You know me, old Nancy." Okay. And then they talk about the writing, and making the writing career sound legitimate is a real stretch for anyone. But she's going, "So you write these novels?" And Nancy's going, "Yeah." Nancy knows how to talk about the process and how she does it and what she's done. And she really, without getting any pushback from her lawyer, you would think like, this lady is a writer, I guess. She sounds like she knows the process of it. And so just to get us in to a little bit of, if we're going to talk about Nancy Brophy's writing and whether it's legitimate or not, the best thing to do is to just read a little bit of it. So I read a couple of the descriptions that she wrote. It's like the back of the book descriptions for her novels. I read one last time just to get us in the spirit of Nancy Brophy's writing. I'm going to read it. One, maybe two more. Okay. So this is the description on the back of the book for the novel, The Wrong Brother. Wrong Never Felt So Right by Nancy Brophy. The small Texas town of Riggers is a safe haven where nothing happens. At least that's the way Navy SEAL Zach Pritchard remembers it. He's home on leave and determined to avoid his brother's girlfriend, Chloe LaRouge. If he can just walk his sister down the aisle and quickly leave, everything will be great. Or so he thinks, except his brother's life is in the toilet. Gordy has dropped out of college and picked up a gig that promises quick money and is only a little illegal. And everyone is a little vague about the status of Chloe and Gordy's life, including the two of them. Chloe is not at all the woman Zach thought. The girl who figured prominently in his fantasies for the past couple of years was not a graduate student with a hermetic lifestyle. Majoring in sex education, he's stunned to find a woman with an in-depth knowledge of sexual technique and yet knows nothing about men or relationships or life beyond the classroom. Many situations involving thwarted ambitions, fraternal competition, drugs, and race cars. Unfortunately, this one has some problems. That's how she ends the description. Unfortunately, this one has some problems. I mean, come on, Nancy. Here, I'm just going to read you the beginning of this one. This is also a great one. This is The Wrong Husband. Wrong Never Felt So Right by Nancy Brophy. Nicole Layton is a desperate woman. Her husband, Senator Linus Layton, not only abuses her, but holds Nicole's brain-damaged niece hostage to keep Nicole in line. The teal-eyed beauty is no dumb blonde. Her plan to escape during their upcoming anniversary cruise in the Mediterranean and hide out in Spain goes awry when the cruise ship wrecks off the coast of Italy. With a leap of faith, she jumps early and rows for hours. Later, weary and exhausted, she drags her inflatable raft. This is a wife of a senator that now is just dragging the raft up onto Italy, and no one checks her or finds her or sees her. She drags her inflatable raft onto the Italian mainland, having no ID nor a way to get home. She's come so far on her wits and planning, but she's out of ideas. And now, Austin Stevens knows when a woman is in trouble. Hired by the senator's insurance company to prove foul play, Austin Stevens of Stevens Security hunts for the presumed dead woman. He's on a race against time and pitted against a clever enemy. To collect on the multi-million-dollar life insurance policy, Layton must produce the dead body of his wife. He hires Black Adder, a private paramilitary operation to ensure that her body will be found. Monumental forces are at work. Okay, so there's just nonsense, right? But she's got it in the testimony. If it's absurd, if her writing career is absurd, then it's absurd to buy the ghost gun, and then it's also absurd to buy the slide and barrel, because it's nothing. It's not like these books are making hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it's like, all right, you want to write one about a ghost gun, it's worth it. But they don't have any money. Their house payment is delinquent. She's spending another $1,000. I need another research piece. I hate guns, but I love them, and I want to put them away, but I'm a little fascinated by them. And the picture she paints I don't think would sit right with anybody, but they're trying. So she's talking about the process. When you're writing a story, the hardest thing to do is finish the story. It's easy to go on to another idea, but you gotta sit there and finish the story. That's the hardest part for us writers. And it's like, yeah, sure, Nancy. And then it gets into the part where she was when the murder happened, and she's talking to the cops and they're interrogating her. Everything was, I barely looked at the gun. I shoved it away. I don't want it. But then it's like more keeps coming out, and even more keeps coming out. And so the only way to explain that in any realistic way is she has to set up that it's like I didn't like them, but I was fascinated by them. I hated them, but I loved them, and it just felt totally weird. And then the whole thing, it didn't look great that she reached out to the police asking for a letter that says she wasn't a suspect for the insurance 2 days after. Well, that's easily explained because a friend told her to do it. So there you go. How could we have missed it? And then the 6-hour direct examination ends with the lawyer going, "Did you kill Dan Brophy?" And she goes, "No, I did not." And every other question, her eyes has been open. And for that one, I don't know what it means, but she closed her eyes while she said it. "No, I did not." Little eye closer. Okay, so there is the direct 6 hours. That was strategy to pull it out. The more time that she's just being her, charismatic self, the better, because they know that once it's in cross-examination, it's not going to be as fluffy. And then their strategy for the cross-examination too, the timing and everything, like he picks up sort of at the end of the day, the end of one day. Maybe he has 20 minutes before the day's chopped, and then cross-examination starts the next day. And so you don't want to get into anything too damning. You got to save the good stuff, the stuff that you are just going to hit Nancy over the head with it and sit back and let the jury see her squirm. Maybe hold off on that. Also, it's strategy to just kind of get her going on some less challenging stuff, let her get rolling, let her feel good, and then slip in the hard stuff. But let me see where I'm at here. Okay. So they start with life insurance too, and they bring up, when you called the cops and asked for a letter to saying you're not a suspect, and they asked you, how much life insurance are you going to get from all this? she said $40,000, which is pretty much the lowest one policy, and out of all the policies, the lowest one to mention. And so she, even though that looks bad and suspicious, she's going, yeah, I mean, they didn't ask about the other ones. And the whole cross she takes on the thing. I thought they didn't ask me. They didn't ask. I thought they were doing their job. I thought that I was the sad widow and they wanted me to go home and rest. They didn't ask. But that does not look good. And then, I'm not going to talk about too much about it, but then the lawyer asks her again, like, was one of the options that because you couldn't afford this house, to move into tiny houses? And Nancy goes, and just starts cackling like, yeah, that was Dan's idea. And he thought we could live in a tiny house. And she just keeps laughing like a total psycho with the whole tiny house thing. It's like, all right, it's an interesting strategy. And then again, she lets out a massive cackle when he asks, who actually cleaned your yard? She cackles again. And you can really see, this is one of the places you can really see what a nightmare woman Nancy is, because she gets all of this help and support. 35 people came and helped her clean the house and pack up her stuff and do the lawn that needed heavy machinery. And a few people had testified, yeah, we cleaned up most of the yard. And then another 2 people were like, well, so we did a lot of it too. So the prosecutor asked her, who cleaned up the yard? And she goes, oh, I heard everybody was kind of squabbling who did the most work. I could have handed out ribbons. Here, you did this, here you go, you did this. And she thinks she's sounding so likable and this like cute, nice old lady, and really she just seems, she gets all this help and she's like, oh, everybody, here, I could have handed out condescending ribbons to everyone if that's what they needed, if that's what they wanted. Okay, let's move on. Oh yeah, another time where she was just completely she was outthought by the prosecutor, is the prosecutors, would you have had the same amount of help before Dan died, saying the 35 people, knowing obviously she wouldn't have. And Nancy goes, well, I wouldn't have had the help how you're talking about it. But the lawyer didn't say how he was talking about it. So he goes, how am I talking about it? And so she goes, before Dan died, no, 35 people, there's no way they would have come over. Think about it. That would have been crazy to have 35 people come over without Dan dying, and also everyone coming over that owns all of the heavy machinery, the capability to do the huge job for us. Of course we didn't have that help. And she thinks, again, she's just beating him in this little back and forth in the moment. But what he's really doing is he's letting her go on and on about how not only was she getting this money from the insurance, but also in her head, if she pulls this off and kills Dan, she gets all the support to help her pack and to clean. And you rest, Nancy. You don't have Dan anymore. We'll do it. They did the whole backyard. That was going to cost them a fortune to have the whole backyard cleared. And all of a sudden, people are doing it for free because she's a sad. And so he's going, she gets done going, of course I wouldn't have had the help. Without Dan dead, I wouldn't have had any help. And he goes, well, that's not what I was going to ask. And Nancy goes, oh, well, I shouldn't have jumped the gun. I think my lawyer told me not to jump the gun. So she's rambling like a murderer. Another just thing that I couldn't get over is she's telling a story about how Dan was in his class teaching chefs at the Culinary Institute, and they said something like, Dan, your wife, it's probably nice your wife is also culinarily trained because she went to culinary school too. So I think they were talking about how it's tough if you're the only one in the relationship that really knows how to cook well, because you get stuck doing a lot of the cooking. But they're like, that's nice that that your wife also is a trained cook. And Nancy proudly tells a story that that she never cooked one meal for Dan in 25 years, even though she went to culinary school. I guess maybe Dan always was cooking and they always had good leftovers, but how does that even work? How does not one time it just, even selfishly for Nancy, she goes, you know what, we're in a crunch time, I want to be here at a certain time, I'll have dinner on the table. But to sit up there proudly and go, I never cooked one meal in 25 years, it's like, well, good for you, Nancy. And then part of that story that Nancy really likes is a student goes, well, what about catering? She owned that catering company. Didn't she cook at the catering company? And she goes, no, she hired people to cook. My wife knows how to close the deal. And Nancy telling that up on the stand goes, when I heard him say that my wife closes the deal, that's when I knew that he knew completely what I do. So that's how she pictured herself. She pictures herself as the deal closer. As far as I can find, she closed no deals. But in her head, she is Nancy Brophy, the deal closer. All right, well, now they get into the ghost gun, and this is the end of the first day. And again, it's not really that hard to make Nancy look bad with the whole ghost gun. And she gets really tripped up because he goes, so you saw an article about a guy that killed his family and thought that you were going to write this story, but you bought this expensive ghost gun kit, but then never ended up writing the story or do any research. And so her big answer for why she bought the ghost gun is, I was doing research for this writing. It's for the writing, for the story. She said it 100 times. It's for the writing. But then they go, well, you didn't write the story, or did you research for the story? What happened to the research? And she goes, no, I didn't. I ended up not researching it. And then they're asking her more, about this ghost gun, and she's painting the ghost gun. It feels like, I think for her, it started to feel better. All right, it's working better if I paint the ghost gun as this just purchase that came out of the blue. I never think about things. I'm very impulsive. I'm very impulsive. She goes, Dan's the planner. Dan's the researcher. I'm impulsive. If I see the ghost gun and it looks interesting, I buy it. Well, then it's like, well, were you not researching then? Because he then all of a sudden went on a thing. It's like, I'm not the researcher. I'm the impulsive one. Dan's the researcher. And so the first day ends with them going, so were you researching? And her having to go, yes, right. I was researching that, but Dan's the planner. Dan is the planner and I'm the researcher. And it just looks bad, If you're the jury, this is one of the first moments. It's starting to look really bad. Worse than her just going, the financial issues, we were on the other side of it. Dan was doing this. I was doing that. We had a plan. We were going to sell the house. It's like, all right, but with this one, I don't know. Okay, so then we move to day 2. This is a big, fat 3-hour session. And Nancy doesn't make it out alive, in my opinion. So they start with, Nancy, you told Dan's mother that it was Dan that was the one that was shot before anyone told you. Explain. And it doesn't look great, but you can explain that one a little bit just by going, I went down there and she goes, I went down to the Culinary Institute and no one was looking at me and everyone told me to stand over here and someone gave me a hug and the whole thing just felt really bad. And if I would have been wrong, then I would have been wrong and I would have called Dan's mom and said, happy days, I was wrong, he wasn't the one, so it looks bad. But then they start talking about the ghost gun again. She's going, it's for the writing, it's for the story. And she's starting to take signals from her defense, which I don't know. If anyone is very familiar with the justice system in Portland, how was that able to fly? I mean, she was looking over and going, and then looking back over. I just had never seen anything of it. And the prosecutor didn't object. I would have said, Your Honor, are you kidding me? What is this? They're staring at each other doing little things. All right, keeping moving. Let's see. All right, well, then it gets into the part of, Nancy, you didn't tell you didn't tell the police about the ghost gun. They asked you if you have any guns, and you didn't tell them about the ghost gun, or you didn't tell them about the slide and barrel. And she goes, they didn't ask. And it's like, I didn't think it was relevant. But then she gets tripped up on that because she labeled the ghost gun, and they go, well, you labeled it. And she goes, yeah, I was labeling it for the police's benefit. And the prosecutor goes, did you literally just say you labeled the ghost gun that you didn't tell the police about for the police's benefit? And she goes, yeah, I figured that they would be interested in it. Well, that doesn't really make sense, because if you're the wife and you lose your amazing husband and all you want him to do is solve it, and you're trying to give him all the information, yeah, we bought this gun for protection, yeah, it's the exact same one, but I also bought the exact same gun for the writing thing, and I also bought a slide and barrel, which I lost. I have no idea even where it is, but she just barely said anything when they go, do you guys have a gun? She goes, yeah, Dan and I bought a gun together, and we got it home, realized we hated it, and never looked at it again. So that's the story she told the cops. And so they're going, why didn't you tell the cops that you had this ghost gun, and you admitted that you knew it might be relevant because you labeled it for them? And, it's obviously not going well. The eyes are widening. The confidence is draining. The cocky look is being wiped slowly but surely. And now we are going to get into some, let's see here. Didn't tell the police at the slide and barrel. She ends that little section by going, I thought that they just wanted to know about Dan's routine, and I told them that, and they wanted me to go home and rest, and I didn't think they were looking at the one person that didn't kill Dan. And those are her little Nancy Brophy lines that I think in real life maybe carry a lot more weight. But she goes, I didn't think that they were looking at the one person that didn't kill Dan. But it's just met with silence. The lawyer doesn't engage with her. She sits there, and it doesn't feel like maybe it works as good as it does in real life, and then the confidence leaves again. And then we get to the part that I talked about right at the beginning, where she really just got outsmarted, where the prosecutor wanted her to admit that, yes, you did take the slide and barrel off of the gun that you said you didn't. And you also did take out the slide and barrel from the gun kit that you said you didn't, and you tried, and you did all this. And like I said, he knew if he just asked her, did you try to mix parts on the gun, she would go into the Brophy dimension and go, no, I didn't do this. So he, like I said at the beginning, played dumb and let her feel like she was, taking him down, and just confidently walked back. So you did know it didn't fit. And well, I have a book about Glocks, and it said it didn't fit. And that's the part. It's the beginning of the end for Brophy, and they're going back and forth. And a great line that the defense attorney said as they're going back and forth on that, and she can tell her client's not doing well. The defense attorney says, Your Honor, at this point, if counsel is going to be aggressive, I would ask he not have the gun. Pretty funny line to end up in there. And then a really tough part for Nancy is, now that she's admitted, again, for 2 years, the interrogations, the whole thing, the whole month-long trial, everybody was under the impression that she never popped off the slide and barrel of the real gun. She had never admitted that before. She'd say, no, we put it away forever. And then all of a sudden she admits that. So now she traps herself in a bad lie, because she was saying that the gun was for protection. The ghost gun kit was for writing and research, and the extra slide and barrel was for writing and research. And before then, it's like, well, why didn't you just use the slide and barrel on the gun that you had for protection? It's the same exact slide and barrel. Just use that for research. But she had said, no, I needed a research object. That was the gun. But now she's admitted she did pop it off. So it's really hard if you can pop off the slide and barrel, Why not just use that one for research? You guys don't have any money. You're in debt. The house payment. To spend another $500. It's hard to explain that. And then one of my favorite, just Nancy, is finally the prosecutor goes, well, you can see now why the extra slide and barrel that is missing is relevant to this case. And she goes, yeah, but it took me 8 months to realize that. So the cocky, brilliant mystery writer, it took her 8 months to comprehend while owning the exact murder weapon and then an extra slide and barrel that's now missing would be relevant to the murder case. Whoa, I think it's starting to click. So she's not looking great on that one. Then they talk about how cell phone data shows Nancy woke up one morning, Googled how to shoot a Glock, Googled how to clean a Glock, drove out to the middle of the nowhere for 6 minutes and drove back. So they're saying, did you go out and shoot the gun that day? She's going, no, I drove around riding. I'm a rider. I love riding. Shirtless Navy SEALs. And then they put up a big picture of the plans of the Culinary Institute, and they say, are you familiar with everywhere in this Culinary Institute? Because she had been familiar with the building before it was this Culinary Institute and took classes there, and Dan had worked there forever. And so they pretty much prove she knows every hallway, back hallway, all the doors, the whole thing. It wouldn't have been a problem for her to sneak up on Dan or to make her way out. That wouldn't have been a problem at all. And then it gets to the footage, which, if you remember, Nancy's whole plan was based on her being in bed when she got the call that Dan had been shot. And so without that, it's really hard. And if I was Nancy, this is the part before I took the stand going, God, I probably got to take the stand just to try to charm the jury. But man, once it gets to that footage part, it is going to be tough going. And it was, because she said, I was in bed writing and I got the call. And then after going through hours and hours, I think like 100 hours of footage from all the surveillance cameras on street lamps and buildings and stuff, the police see her in her van wearing a nightshirt with no bra, tits everywhere, stringy white hair, and a gun and a writing notebook, driving around for an hour that morning. And I was thinking, imagine being the law enforcement that was tasked, like, all right, you're going to watch 5 gigabytes of this surveillance footage, be looking for Nancy's van, be looking for Nancy maybe in another car. Let's see, maybe it's not Nancy. See, what you find. So you're sitting there hour after hour looking for the footage, and then all of a sudden, imagine the feeling when you pause it, you go, that's her van. Come over here, you guys. And the whole winds of the case change in that moment, and you say, it was her. She did it. And in the 6 hours of direct examination, they talked about, for 5 hours, they talked about the years before the year that she killed her husband. It was like the strategy was like, okay, in 2018, when you killed Dan, you don't look very good. So let's talk. So since we, got to talk about something, instead of talking about 2018, not good, let's talk about 2007. Nothing really bad happened that year for you, so we'll hone in on that. So the 6 hours of direct examination was just really creeping along at a snail's pace, and then it gets to the point where actually she wasn't in bed and she's on this footage, and they just zip right through it. Oh, I don't remember anything about that. It must be retrograde amnesia. The next thing I remember is lying in bed writing, and I get the call that something happened. And in direct, that's fine. The lawyer just goes, okay, yep, that's the whole plan. They plan to time it out like that, move quickly. But with Cross, he's not going to let her off that easily. So she keeps trying to be like, yeah, I don't remember anything. And then the next thing I remember, I was in bed writing. And he goes, no, slow down, Nancy. We're not going to move that quickly. And she's going, okay. She knows she doesn't want to. And they're going, at this point, you agree that is you in the van. Because for the longest time, as you can imagine, she's like, that's not me. That's not. And she finally goes, yes, it is. That's me. I admit it. But details had come out. It's really hard to not remember to lie and say you don't remember anything about a chunk of time and then talk about that chunk of time, because Nancy keeps accidentally remembering things. She's talking to her lawyer, and she's painting the picture. She's in a total blacked out stupor in a nightshirt, writing in some neighborhood that's considered not even that safe, and Nancy all of a sudden remembers, oh yes, I was riding, and I faintly remember in my blackout that I saw a van and a man walking towards the van and away from the van, and it was a little too distracting, so there's a faint little memory of her like moving away from that. But before she's up on the stand, it was, I remember nothing. I put tights on in the morning, and as I slid that stretchy fabric over my legs, the memory went blank, like a white screen. And so now he's asking her, he says, all right, well, the prosecutor can now be like, well, you said that you don't remember anything, but you remember this, and you said you didn't remember anything, but you remember that. And the only way she can really answer it is just going, well, that's what I would have done. I don't have any memory, but I'm telling you off my routine. And then the lawyer will go, well, tell me off memory. And she goes, I don't remember. I have no memory of it. And then she gets in trouble because she leaves herself open for, okay, Nancy, you own the murder weapons, 2 of them, and an extra slide and barrel, and you have zero memory, total blackout of that time where you're on footage driving around down there right when it happened. Is it possible that you went in there in the blacked out stupor and shot Dan? No, it's impossible. And the prosecutor's like, it's impossible because how could it, she remembers that she didn't do it, essentially. All I remember is that I didn't do the one thing that I could go to jail forever for. And then this is where it really ends for Nancy. And now this is word for word. So the prosecutor goes, you would agree the critical moments that you've been asked about, your response is that you don't remember. I mean, that's big. And she goes, that's the most accurate thing I could tell you. And he goes, right. But the critical moments that you were there at the same time that someone happens to be shooting your husband within a 6-minute window with the exact type of gun that you own and is now missing. And her eyes are wide, and she goes, quote, that's your version of what happened. That's not my version of what happened. The only thing I know for sure is that I did not kill Dan, and I have no problem with that. I know I didn't kill him with the ghost gun and the real gun and the slide and barrel. It's like she goes on like a Dr. Seuss thing. Like, I know I didn't kill him with the gun. I know I didn't kill him with the toy. I know I didn't. And she's going, and then this is the first time she loses her temper, she loses her composure, and she's going, talking about how she lied to the cops during that first initial interrogation the day of. And she goes, I thought that was a death notification. I thought that they wanted me to tell them Dan's routine and what I knew about Dan's routine, and then they were going to tell me to go home and rest. I didn't know that it was an interrogation, an end-up interview. They just kept hammering and hammering and hammering. And the fact that you've constructed a case against me, and frankly, I think your case is held up with Band-Aids. And that whole speech, how she said, I think your case is held up with Band-Aids, it was not met with anything from the prosecutor except, would you like to add anything else? And she goes, no, I'm done. Even probably more than what does she say? I'm done. Even more. Oh, I don't have it written down. She says something like, no, I'm done, even more than I probably want to be, or something like that. And she's looking at her attorneys, and you got to think her attorneys are white knuckling it on this one, because at any moment on one of these just rambles, she could ruin it all. And here's the greatest line of the entire. It's wrapping up now. Here's the greatest line of the entire testimony. And this is her answer to, is it possible that you shot Dan and you just don't remember? You say you don't remember anything. You went to the Culinary Institute 2 weeks before at the same exact time to use the bathroom. It's not that crazy. Is it possible you shot him and you just don't remember? He keeps coming back to that as she goes, well, I don't remember that. He'll ask her something, I don't remember that. Was it possible you just don't remember? And she says, quote, no, and she's mad. No, this is not a man I would have shot if I had a memory issue. Seems to me like if I had shot Dan, I would remember every detail, you know? And she's just rambling wildly, going, you know, and no one is stepping in going, yeah, we know, and it's falling flat. I would remember every detail, you know? I could have told you all sorts of things that are true. I did not shoot Dan, my husband, and I don't even know how to defend myself against the truth, you know? And as that line comes out, she's even surprised. And what's happening is this woman has been lying for so long, and the walls are closing in, that a huge percentage of her brain, most of her thinking power is going towards what she just said. Does that fit with the lie that she said? Is it going to work? And she's about to blow a gasket, and too much of her computing power is going to figure out the lies. And so the words that are coming out of her mouth now are almost just random bursts of speech. And as her mind is caving in on itself with her own lies, she says, I don't even know how to defend myself against the truth, you know? That's the first line she said the entire testimony, when she said, you know, where I said back, I do know, Nancy. I know. And I mean, that's devastating. I mean, think about that. She's up there wide-eyed, rambling. Oh yeah, there's a lot of lie cries throughout this whole thing. I actually broke my whole entire setup. I got to screw it back in during Amber Heard's lie. Amber Heard broke the lie cry machine. I ripped it off. It's got to do some repair jobs. And then one of the other times you really see the real Nancy Brophy, because Nancy's up there with a sweet voice. I'm a sweet old lady. And they asked Nancy, the student that came upon Dan when he has bullet holes in him and sat there and tried to give him CPR and save his life. Imagine that scene. You're giving someone with 3 bullet holes in their torso life-saving. What a morning that had to be. And the student got up and was crying on the stand, discussing that really hard moment. And they asked Nancy about that. You know, did you see the woman? You haven't cried all that much, but the woman that other people have been crying a lot more than you. And Nancy thinks the best way to explain that away is by going, oh, yeah, well, I think they're just crying for themselves, not because of Dan. They didn't love Dan. They're just crying because they went through a tough situation personally. And it's like, Nancy, no, that's not helping. And they play a few seconds of like a jailhouse phone call where Nancy, all of a sudden, this sweet voice up on the stand is this cold, mean voice where she's going, yeah, they brought all these little girls up to cry on cue. That little Spanish girl. And that's the Spanish girl she's talking about. That's the Spanish woman that tried to save your husband. And so to get up there and go, she's crying for herself, not because of Dan, could not make Nancy look worse. She called the gun a shooty thingy. That's hilarious. And, oh yeah, the one another funny thing about Nancy's plan is in 2018 when it happened, there was a couple months before they arrested her, and she was going around telling everybody, yeah, there's rumors that a homeless person did it. That's what she was saying. There's rumors. I heard a rumor. And it's like, what rumor? Who are you talking to, Nancy? Did Train Ride and Rick tell Wine Jug Willie that a homeless person did it? What are you talking about? A rumor. And the testimony ends with Nancy looking like this. It's almost like the Dr. Spiegel in the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial. He started like this, yeah, I'm Dr. Spiegel. And he ended like this, I'm Dr. Spiegel. And Nancy started cackling and just really carrying on, and she ended like this, and she just slowly like took his out of her ears. And I mean, it really is something to watch. I'm gonna cut it off there. A month after that, Nancy got convicted, or no, sorry, Nancy got sentenced to life in prison. It didn't work, and that's it. So I'll see you soon. Why? Stiving why? Shut